wherever you're awake fully, you have to have smaller things which are organically placed. Okay,
So
plant trees.
all right, sure.
Yeah, go green, walk. Again, do your own stuff, your own self. Use less machine, become less dependent on machines by design. Not only for the sake of look at my stomach is telling me right now what I have to eat. Right now, see, I'm actually growling right now. Your body is going to tell you yourself whether you gotta sleep, you gotta wake up. We are actually using machines to wake up. Even the body is designed to tell us when to wake up.
Yeah.
If the child is, I'm going to talk to you mommies right now. If your child is sleepy, he's not going to be, telling you of how to help him go to sleep. His body is going to make him go to sleep. If a child is not sleepy, you cannot slap him into sleeping. Most mothers do that.
Yeah.
Just like that, your body is going to tell you whether you're ill, you have a fever, you're curious, you're happy, you're sad. We're actually designing these things so that they can actually start dictating every single action that we're going to make.
I was going to ask you a question. I mean, we're talking about addictions. One of those addictions, which unfortunately even pervade our Muslim countries, is pornography addiction. Now, how do we deal with that? Because that's an addiction which I was actually listening to. I'm sure you've heard Andrew Huberman. He also does a lot of work on like dopamine and stuff like that. And I heard him have a conversation with somebody. I don't know who he was speaking to, but it's a podcast like the one we're having right now. And there was an interesting point he made, which is that when you are addicted to pornography, he was making the point that it actually makes you voyeur. I mean, he didn't put it in these terms, but it makes you voyeuristic in the sense that you become aroused based on the third-person experience of looking at pornography, rather than being aroused because of the first-person experience of actually getting involved in sexual activity. So it messes up the wiring in the brain somehow. Obviously, this is putting it colloquially. The question is, someone is now addicted, whether they are married or have a sexual partner or not, to pornography. What would be, first of all, how do you diagnose this? And what are the practical solutions to be able to deal with this?
Okay, well, there are two things. He missed out on one thing, though.
Sure.
Because he got one thing totally right. You're not in control of the action when you're looking at, this sort of an act. Video is not going to put you in control. That means you would require less control in your real life, okay? And you would want that kind of script to control your own personal sexual life with your partner, with your wife. That really changes things. That's what he meant when he said it's changing the wiring of the brain. Secondly, it objectifies the very action and the subject and the object. It actually objectifies the whole, routine, which again is going to trigger it's an atypical dopamine cycle. Okay. That means you're going to have to recreate all of that with your wife or husband if you are addicted to pornography. And unless you recreate that and top it, because the one time you're going to recreate that, that's going to get the dopamine center.
But how would you recreate it? Would they watch it together, or how?
No. Whatever any one of them has seen at any kind of scene, they're going to have to recreate it. But they're going to get that dopamine from that scene. Now they're not going to get the same dopamine from that scene. Now they have to top it up.
So they'll create fantasies in the bedroom.
Not just that, but the more extreme the fantasy, the more dopamine.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So whatever kind of pornography they're going to...
Sorry to cut you off, I was reading a book, don't ask me why, but there was a book that was written by this guy called Justin Lemiller, and it's called Tell Me What You Want. And in that book, he done it's a survey of 4,000 or 3,000 people in America. And he was asking them what their sexual fantasies are. And they put, like you mentioned, like a lot of the stuff would be considered to be completely atypical. Sorry to say, threesomes and incestuous and...
Not just that, but, go gruesome, that's the word.
BDSM was huge on the list. Yeah.
And not... but then it'll... Because there's so much that a woman or a man can do. So they'll have to come up with some techniques to actually, again, topping it up.
Wow.
Just like a smoker is going to go into marijuana, marijuana is going to go into coke, coke is going to go into heroin, and heroin is going to overdose you.
It's the same thing, right?
Literally. The problem with pornography would be that there's this thing in the brain called the VTA. That's the central area around which the limbic system is placed. And there's this protein precipitant called the delta phos B.
Okay.
Once it precipitates there, you cannot get it out.
Sure.
Parkinson actually. people with Parkinson are going to go through the same thing. But the fact that even if you have to get that is purely dopamine, by the way. So if you have to go and get delta phosphate out of the whole cycle, you need an antagonist to actually work the exact opposite cycle of dopamine. Once this protein precipitates, you're not gonna. I mean, this is as fatal as it gets in terms of these sort of in this realm. You're permanently addicted to it. In other words, it is going to make you as much of an impotent person, even though you're not going to be impotent, but nothing's going to arouse you, because even if it does, you'll have to actually therapeutically arouse yourself. And hence, those psychologists are going to keep telling these couples to pretend that he's somebody else and, go into role play that or wear masks or whatever. They're going to come up with all sorts of things. But there's a limit to how many masks a man can wear or a woman can be called.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So these lists are going to wear out, and they're going to run out of pretensions and scenarios and role plays. And the fact that if I am an actor by design, then imagine the kind of low self-esteem a person has that his wife is pretending that I'm somebody else. Look at the damage from the other angle. That if my wife has to pretend that I'm some other man, that's actually shaking the very core of my actual esteem and my belief. As most of them, I can't even think about these things, right? So that's why Muslims can't. I'm assuming Muslims would never be able to think about role plays. It's like this is as.
You'd be surprised. Muslims do all kinds of things.
Well, then they better start replaying this video all over.
I even came across scholarly words, classical scholar positions that I'm not going to go into great details, but books have been written about this, basically talking about what hukum these kinds of things have. If you're thinking about
I'll
it,
tell you, it's for the boys only, because they're going to be really reactive to this video, this part of the video, so skip it. But even if boys are actually pretending that she's someone else, it's not as hurting or hurtful in chemistry than if a girl is doing it. Because if a girl is doing that, then you're actually opening a lot more doors to a lot or bigger problems. And now I'm not going to trigger on purpose the theological doctrine here.
Sure.
But because every Muslim can do the math and why it's going to be devastating. Anybody who's even read anything. But as a man, and you need to understand that women's psychology doesn't work like men's psychology. Women's dopamine cycles are not about novelty. Man's dopamine cycle is novelty. Every day.
What was it for the woman then?
Longevity. If it is not the same guy forever, it's not dopaminergic for a woman. You know what I'm saying? Hence, one husband for the wife in Jannah. And he's not going to be able to divorce you. That's longevity. But for the man, novelty is dopaminergic. Actually, nothing compares to novelty when it comes down to dopamine for a man's psychology. I mean, so that's why if men are pretending, well, I get it. But if women are pretending that, you're not the husband, then you got a bigger problem than just porn addiction, buddy. A way bigger problem.
Yeah. Also, that's the problem. What's the solution?
Again, dopamine works in the same ways. So dopamine retardation, the dilation, has to be retarded, shrunk back into its original size. And it's not about the dilation, it's about the triggers as well.